To Lorraine Knight, Yosemite's chief ranger, it was a necessary bit of drama. Parks, even the big ones like Yosemite, Yellowstone, or the Grand Canyon, were, at least socially, very small towns. Yosemite concessions workers in both the hotel and her less picturesque and pricey sister, Yosemite Lodge, along with the people minding the stores, delis, and shops, numbered around 1,200. Nearly 600 National Park Service people overwintered. In a society of less than 2,000 souls, everybody knew everybody, at least by sight, if not by name. On the rare occasions when an undercover law enforcement person was called for, a ranger from another park, an unknown face and name had to be brought in. Anna was unsure whether it was her law enforcement status or the fact that she'd worked her way through college, waiting tables at Pepe Delgado's in San Luis Obispo, that inspired her own chief ranger, John Brown, to offer her the assignment when the call went out. She was pleasantly surprised at how fast her skills came back. She had been wearing a probably dead woman's clothes, both literally and figuratively, for less than a week. And already her short-term memory had risen to the challenge. Crawling into trousers of the deceased hadn't been Anna's heart's desire, but a new uniform order would have taken a week or more to arrive. So far, the hardest part of the job had been turning her tips over to the Mountain Safety Fund. As long as she was pulling in her pay as a GS-11 district ranger, she wasn't allowed to keep them. A shame. They dwarfed her salary. A quick check of the order, and she put it up for the chef. Waitstaff, desiring to keep the peace, double-checked orders. James Wither, a man so lean his large hazel eyes bulged from nearly fleshless sockets, and whose jet-black hair hung over a forehead lined by at least 50 years of slaving over hot stoves, saw waiters and waitresses as either flawed delivery systems or malicious art vandals bent on destroying his creative visions. Anna had never seen him actually throw knives at busboys or fling trays at salad chefs, but she'd heard the stories and chose to tread lightly. Several of the longtime servers could talk intelligently about food. These educated few Wither could see and hear. Anna, who shied away from meat, but otherwise ate what was easy, cheap, or put in front of her, was beneath his notice. This was good. Despite what they said in the movies, a spy needed to be unremarkable. Anna was finding this and the rest of the spying business harder than she'd anticipated. Chatting, drawing people out, being downright likable, was work for her at the best of times. Doing so with ulterior motives was an absolute grind. When tempted to give it up as a non-starter, the unapologetic opinion of Leo Johnson, the deputy superintendent, and go home to her dog, her cat, and her fiancé, Anna viewed in her mind's eye the photographs Lorraine Knight had shown her. Before donning her apron and sensible shoes, Anna had met with the chief ranger and the deputy superintendent. Lorraine had shown her pictures of Dixon Crofter, Patrick Waters, Trish Spencer, and Caitlin Bates. These four were typical of the marvelously atypical young people who worked in parks. Dixon Crofter, what parkies referred to as a climber dude, lived in Camp 4, a mecca for rock climbers from all over the world. He'd been in Yosemite 3 seasons. He'd climbed for fun. If he could get on a funded expedition to Greenland or Austria or Patagonia, he climbed for fun and money. When the park search and rescue team needed a climber, they hired Dixon or several other of the SAR-siders living in the camp. Then Dixon climbed for fun, money, and the good of his fellow man. Dixon was 24 years old, 6'3", 135 pounds. From the picture, Anna guessed his body was a powerful construction of cable and bone. He had long, curling black hair, a smile that could melt ice, and a nose a Bedouin chief would be proud of. Pat Waters worked trail crew. He was 2 years younger than Dixon. Where the climber was narrow, Pat was broad, shoulders, jaw, chest. He looked strong, not with gym-honed bench-press muscles, but the kind that can move rocks and stumps all day and still have the energy to tell jokes over dinner. He sported a bleach blonde mohawk and a grin that, despite the dusty rigors of his chosen occupation, spoke of expensive orthodonture. On his right biceps was a tattoo of Bill the Cat, in one of his more schizophrenic poses. Trish Spencer and Caitlin Bates were photographed together, their arms around each other's waists, their heads close, long hair twining together. Trish's was sleek and brown, Caitlin's bleached and permed with black roots. Trish had buck teeth, a shade whiter than nature intended, and dark eyes that nearly disappeared with the onslaught of her smile. Caitlin wore a bandana, pirate, or, to Anna's memory, hippie style around her head, and looked all of 12 years old. Neither girl would ever make a living modeling or win a swimsuit contest, but they were beautiful nonetheless. Even in the flat, dead medium of a photograph, they exuded youth and high spirits, and in Caitlin, at least, an innocent wickedness that Anna found irresistible. Trish was in her 3rd season as a waitress at the Ahwahnee. Caitlin was one of the NPS's own. She was a summer intern, finishing her 1st season working in Little Yosemite Valley Campground, a heavy-use area, a 4-mile hike, most of it straight up behind Half Dome. 13 days before Anna arrived, a vicious thunderstorm dropped 8 inches of snow on the park amid high winds, followed by a cold snap that had yet to let up. 10 days later, the high country was blanketed in another foot of snow. In between these 2 meteorological events, these 4 kids had gone missing. They hadn't been seen leaving the park together. None of them filed backcountry permits. They told no one of their plans. It was only assumed they were together because they'd all disappeared on the same day. Patrick Waters left trail camp on the Illilouette Trail to come to the valley for his weekend. Dixon Crofter was spotted by a maintenance worker about 5 a.m. that same day, hitchhiking west out of the valley with a backpack and climbing ropes. Caitlin Bates had left Little Yosemite Valley Camp the afternoon before, also on her weekend, headed for the apartment she shared with 3 other park interns near the old graveyard in the valley. Her supervisor said she'd carried nothing but an empty pack and water. He had assumed she'd hiked out the Mist Trail past Nevada and Vernal Falls. It was steep, the upper half little more than a shattered granite staircase, but only a little over 4 miles long. Fit and agile, with knees not yet forced to bend too often to the vicissitudes of life, the young intern could reach the valley floor in an hour. Trish, pleading headache, had stayed home while her 2 roommates left for work that morning. When they'd returned, she was gone, as were her pack and boots. Later, it was discovered that the fire axe had been taken from its niche in the hall. For Anna's edification, Lorraine Knight had drawn the containment area of the search, the area in which, based on time, distance, physical ability, terrain, and weather, the missing persons had a 95% chance of being found. Outside this perimeter, Anna was amused to discover, was referred to as the row, the rest of the world. To indicate even the zillionth percentile of possibility beyond that, Lorraine sketched a tiny flying saucer. After 8 days, the search had been suspended, not abandoned, since, in spirit at least, the NPS never gave up looking. Wet snow, ice, 3 weeks. If the 4 were lost or injured in the backcountry, they were most likely dead, unless, and this was the deputy superintendent's pet theory, the 4 of them had hitched out of the park to find warmer adventures in Mexico or South America. Anna hadn't been brought in as an addendum to the search and rescue effort. Yosemite had one of the finest SAR operations in the country, if not the world. The park was harsh enough to provide endless challenges, and the visitors were foolish enough to provide the rangers with endless practice. Lorraine Knight had brought Anna in because she was convinced the incident was far from over. She had stated her view succinctly. "I suspect foul play," she'd said, and smiled at the drama of the words. With that smile, Lorraine won Anna over. They were of an age, more or less, and seemed to have like interests. Knight was a big woman, 5'10" or 11, and powerful-looking, without being masculine in the least. Anna put her age at around 50, though it was hard to tell. Sun and wind had done more to her skin than the mere passage of years. Her hair was undimmed by either time or the elements. A braid as thick as Anna's wrist and of a rich red gold hung down past her waist. The tail of it rested on the butt of her gun like a squirrel on a branch.